What's going on, everyone? So, per Anthony Irwin, the Toronto Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets are open to acquiring Lakers' DeAngelo Russell. Followed up, Portland has no interest in Russell. According to sources close to that situation, league sources also say Washington is wary of pairing Russell with fellow Space Cadet Jordan Poole. Toronto and Brooklyn are more open to acquiring the 9-year veteran, but more for his expiring contract than for what he'd do on the court. Now, again, there's this kind of growing buzz that DeAngelo Russell essentially doesn't have any real value, right? That teams don't really value DeAngelo Russell, which from a Lakers standpoint, via trade, makes things very difficult, right? Because a lot of these teams don't want D'Lo. And I also think a lot of it is just, how many teams need a point guard, right? And most of the teams that we're in conversations with for various trades all kind of have their point guard locked up, all kind of have their guy. There's very few teams that really need a starting caliber point guard, right? But for the Lakers, there is value for D'Lo. Like, D'Lo was very good last season. Now, I understand his concerns and ailments in the playoffs, but you still got to do good in the regular season to make the playoffs, and D'Lo is a real piece that can help get you there and be massive. And if you look at year one with the Lakers and that Denver series and just that playoff run period to this past season in that Denver series, D'Lo was much better, right? Like, you saw the growth and improvement. I mean, he was great in like half the games, which, we need him great in every game, but still, like, is that progress? Is that incremental growth? Is he getting more comfortable in those situations, right? Or is it going to be another thing where you go in and now you're in trouble? Now, look, there's also a big difference between DeAngelo Russell being your third option and your fourth or fifth option, right? Like, if the Lakers are able to pull off a trade for, say, a Jeremy Grant's going to be the third option. D'Lo now moves over to your fourth option at best, right? That's a big difference because now there isn't as much reliance on D'Lo to be great, right? So if D'Lo does have a stinker, you're still capable of winning as long as your top three guys are able, and other guys contribute, of course, but as long as your top three guys are kind of handling the bulk of the workload. And, so the game in which D'Lo gives you 20, you probably win those games, right? You're probably not going to lose those games. But the games in which he gives you like 4, you still can win because he's not as reliant or needed. But look, I understand a lot of people just want to trade D'Lo just for the sake of trading D'Lo. I completely disagree. I think if the deal's there, you trade him. But you also got to look at it as like, by trading D'Lo, you potentially open a hole in another area, right? Like, if you were to trade D'Lo for Jeremy Grant, right? Like, well, now you have a hole at the point guard position, right? And yes, you got to win. Where like Rui just makes more sense because you're swapping a forward for a forward, right? But you're getting a more natural 3 compared to Rui Hachimura, right? So you didn't just basically solve one puzzle to now have another one unsolved that you got to figure out, right? Like, you kind of got it all lumped together, right? So to me, I do think D'Lo, like, if you had to choose between D'Lo and Rui, I think you trade Rui if you're trading for another forward, right? Now, if you're trading for another guard, then I think D'Lo now makes some sense, right? Like, if you're trading for a guy that can kind of slot in and play the initiator, playmaker role, then I think you do that, right? So, for example, the Toronto Raptors, right? Toronto, supposedly, again, according to Anthony Irwin, is open to DeAngelo Russell for his expiring contract, and they want to trade a guy like Bruce Brown. Lakers are interested in Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown has been interested in the Lakers. Got to remember, Bruce Brown was going to sign for Gabe Vincent. So instead of Gabe Vincent, we would have had Bruce Brown. But the Indiana Pacers decided, hey, let's give Bruce Brown double, and he ends up going and getting the bag, which I can't knock him for. I mean, go get your bag, right? You'd probably never get a contract like that. And it worked out for Indiana because they were able to use him to go get, Pascal Siakam. So, it was to their benefit. Where now it's like, if you're the Lakers, well, if you can trade, say, Rui, Gabe Vincent, and, Cam Reddish for Jeremy Grant, and then turn around and turn D'Lo plus whatever else, right, into a Bruce Brown, now I think you solved all of, you still have the center issue, but you solved that point of attack, 3-and-D guard, athleticism, rim pressure, all of that. Plus, you also got that upgrade in at the small forward position, right? So now you didn't open one hole, or you didn't close one hole to open another, right? You kind of got that. So, if you're the Lakers, you kind of, in my opinion, I think you should be looking at somebody like, okay, like we want to swap a guard for a guard and a forward for a forward. We want to get upgrades in those positions of need, right? So you're basically turning D'Lo into a Bruce Brown. Again, and it's not, a lot of people look at, like the Jeremy Grant and Rui thing, and they're like, Jeremy Grant isn't that much better than Rui. Or, some people even think Rui is better, right? But it's not always about just putting the best players out there. I mean, we see it all the time. Look, if basketball was just in a vacuum to where you could just throw out the most talent and win every time, right? I mean, talent is important, right? The team that usually wins is the team that has the most overall talent and health, but it has to fit, right? We've seen plenty of instances, particularly with the Lakers. I mean, look at that team with like Steve Nash, Dwight Howard, Kobe Bryant, Meta, and Pau Gasol, right? It's just, again, it's not about just throwing out solely talent, right? It's about fit. So a thing like a Rui for Gabe Vincent, it's about the fit and providing what the Lakers need, which is just better athleticism out on the perimeter. Right? He's just more versatile for the Lakers than Rui is. Same thing with a guy like a Bruce Brown, right? It's not, who's better, Bruce Brown or D'Lo, right? Because D'Lo's the better offensive player. D'Lo's the better shooter, but Bruce Brown is more of a need because you have Austin Reeves at the 2 guard, which the Lakers are probably never going to move him to the bench. So you have Austin Reeves at 2 guard. You need somebody that can complement that. Bruce Brown is a guy that would be a better fit for the Lakers because it provides necessary perimeter defense, which we were atrocious in last year, also gives you and maintains that initiator, but gives you that versatility that we just don't currently have, and that foot speed, athleticism, so on and so forth, right? So if the Lakers can land a guy like a Bruce Brown and, a Cam Johnson or a Jeremy Grant or whatever, I just think that that's the better approach. I think that's a better opportunity. And speaking of, Cam Johnson, I mean, Brooklyn is another destination. I mean, Brooklyn could solve both, right? Because Brooklyn not only has Cam Johnson, they also have Dennis Schroeder. So you go get Schroeder back, right? So you could do something to where, you're, instead of going and getting Jeremy Grant, I mean, you could essentially put together the same package and go get Schroeder and Cam Johnson, right? And I mean, and then if you wanted to, you could still go get, Bruce Brown or something, have Schroeder kind of be your backup if you wanted to go that route. But you could still like go and work something out to where, because Cam Johnson is also cheaper than Jeremy Grant. He's also younger. I think Jeremy Grant is the better overall player, but I don't think Cam Johnson is far off. I just think Jeremy Grant is better at creating for himself than Cam Johnson is, but he's no slouch, right? Like, they both can shoot high volume threes at good efficiency. Both guys can defend multiple positions. Both guys can play both forward spots, right? So in a nutshell, they're basically, very comparable. They're very similar players. I just like Jeremy Grant's ability to get to the foul line and shot creation better than Cam Johnson's. But again, you got LeBron, you got AD, right? If you were to keep D'Lo, or you were to go get a Dennis Schroeder or Bruce Brown or something like that, well, then you wouldn't really need him to create a bunch of shots for himself, right? You wouldn't be asking him to do that. He basically you need him just to be a 3-and-D guy. So, and he could just fit that role perfectly. So I look at kind of what the Lakers need and the significant upgrades, and you kind of look around and it's like, okay, it's finding those teams that want to give you, reasonable value, right? Like, right now, everybody's asking prices are insane. Why? Because it's still early. Right? You have a lot of time between now and training camp. Once you get to training camp, or close to training camp, I do think a lot of these prices will drop because a lot of these teams are not going to want to go in with their guys. Like a team like Portland. I think that they drop down to 1 first once they get into training camp. I mean, even Portland insiders don't think that they're going to hold at 2 first because they don't think anyone's going to give them 2 first for Jeremy Grant, right? And it's like, do they want to, like, they're not just going to give Jeremy Grant away, right? Like, they're still going to want something for him, but right now the price is just ridiculous. I think that price drops down in half, at least. And why? Because, again, they have a bunch of young forwards that they want to get experience on, that they want to give opportunity to. I mean, they just traded for, Denny from the Washington Wizards, who plays Jeremy Grant's spot, right? So it's like, like, you're really going to take away from him and Murray and all these other guys that you have to run Jeremy Grant? Like, at least if you're winning games, at least it's with your young guys, right? Same thing with Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn, I can see wanting to get off some of these guys because they want to get in that tank race. They want to get for Cooper Flag or one of these other guys. And I also think the Lakers are going to really benefit from just the tank race this year because this is perceived as a very good draft, right? The top 5 guys in this year's draft all would have been projected number 1 picks in this year's draft. And there's another handful of 2 guys that many believe have star potential. Like, this draft is looked at as very good. But as far as the DLO front goes, again, I just don't think you can just give DLO away. I know some people don't care, trade DLO for a bag of chips, this, that, and the other. But again, you got to get to the playoffs. And you can always be worse, right? At least we know DLO works in the regular season. At least we know what he's going to provide in the regular season. Lakers were, until they got Spencer Dinwiddie for that 1 game, the Lakers never won a game without DLO, right? Like, when DLO missed, Lakers lost, right? Why? Because DLO was so impactful. His shooting, his playmaking, right? Like, his ability to just knock down shots with consistency and at high volume. I mean, he came off of a historically great season, right? Like, you don't just give that guy away. Again, if the move's there and it makes sense, you do it, right? And a big reason why you trade DLO too is because it's just the fear of him leaving. He's been in constant trade rumors. He's kind of been, the scapegoat for a lot of, fans and stuff. Like, how long does he want to stick around and just constantly go through that, right? Every year he's a Laker. He's going to be in trade rumors and, he's going to be blamed for losses and stuff like that when it's not all on DLO. Again, even in this Denver series, where was Rui? Where was Austin Reeves up until game 4? Right? Like, where were all the other guys? Right? Like, but DLO was looked at as like he was supposed to be the 3rd guy. Right? But if you get that piece to where he's not as pressured to be the 3rd guy, then now there's not as much pressure on him. And like I said, he continued to improve, right? Like, what does he look like this year in the playoffs? If he's great in, 4 out of 6 games, and then 5 out of 6 games, and then all 6 games, the more you do something, the more comfortable you get, right? This wasn't a guy that had a ton of playoff experience, right? So, but now he's really starting to get that, really starting to get those high pressure moments, right? Like, so again, I think, it's worth keeping DLO if nothing's there. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think don't just trade DLO, trade DLO? Do you think, you got to unload DLO? Do you want a Bruce Brown? Do you want a Cam Johnson? Do you want somebody else on the list that you think would be great comes to mind? Again, how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.